In this video, I'll be going over weight and terminal velocity, the equations related to these terms, how they are linked, and explaining how exactly terminal velocity is reached. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, the first thing you need to understand is the difference between these terms, mass and weight. So here I have a green block on the Earth and the exact same green block on the Moon. On Earth, this block has a mass of 50 kilograms. Its weight is 490 newtons. On the Moon, this block has a mass of 50 kilograms, but its weight's only 80 newtons. From this, we can say that the mass is the amount of matter or substance in an object, measured in kilograms. Weight is the force acting on that mass due to the gravitational pull of whatever it's on. Now, weight is measured in newtons instead of kilograms. Now, as you've just seen, the weight is calculated by multiplying the mass with the gravitational field strength. On Earth, the gravitational field strength, or G, is about 9.8 newtons per kilogram. On the Moon, it's a lot less at 1.6 newtons per kilogram. That's because the Moon has a lot less mass than the Earth, and that means its gravitational pull is a lot less. That nicely brings us onto the subject of freefall. Say I have a ball with a mass of about a kilogram, it's falling on Earth, there are no other forces acting on it except for its weight. The resultant force is therefore equal to its weight. We know that G on Earth is 9.8 newtons per kilogram, and as the ball's only a kilogram, the weight of it must obviously equal 9.8 newtons. Using the formula F equals ma, where the force is equal to the mass multiplied by acceleration, we can see that A is equal to F over m, so we can put the force, in this case the weight, of 9.8 over the mass of the ball, in this case a kilogram, and that gives us 9.8 meters per second squared. This is the acceleration due to gravity. Notice it's the same as the gravitational field strength, it just has different units. When objects are dropped on Earth, in a vacuum they will fall and accelerate at the exact same rate. There's a lovely video by Brian Cox which actually goes into this, and I'll link that below. Now the problem is we don't actually live in a vacuum, and this is where terminal velocity comes into play. Say I have a container filled with water and I drop a ball into it. Initially, the force acting downwards due to gravity, in this case the weight, will be greater than the drag force acting upwards. The ball will accelerate downwards and its speed increases. As the speed increases, however, so does the drag force acting on it, and that causes the resultant force acting downwards to get smaller, reducing the acceleration on the ball. It lowers that overall resultant force, which means that the acceleration will also go down. This happens until the drag force equals the force downwards, meaning the resultant force is now zero, and the object continues in constant motion, as stated by Newton's first law. This constant velocity is what we call the terminal velocity. Another example of terminal velocity is a car on a road. Initially, here the car is at rest. When the accelerator is pushed down, we get a resultant force because the driving force forwards is greater than the resistive force backwards. In this case, the resistive force is mostly air resistance. Just like the example with the ball in water, eventually the resistive force will equal the driving force, and then the car will move in constant motion. If the car does accelerate again, the driving force will need to overcome that resistive force once more. Going back to the example I had with the ball falling in water, here we have a velocity time graph. If I plot the velocity of the ball over time in the water, I get something like this. Note the curve at the start, as the ball initially speeds up very quickly and then its acceleration lowers until it moves at a constant speed. If we were to look at the velocity of the ball again, but this time I dropped it through the air, the curve would look something like this. We still have that curve at the start, but it lasts much longer before flattening, and at a higher velocity than when we dropped it in water. For both scenarios, we get the terminal velocity by reading across to the y-axis when the curve flattens. The terminal velocity in air is much higher because the resistive force, in that case air resistance, is initially much smaller than the drag in the water. It takes a lot longer and the ball needs to fall further before the air resistance can equal its weight so that the ball can reach terminal velocity. I hope that gave you a brief overview of weight and terminal velocity. The final thing I will leave on is this tip. When the resistive force equals the applied force, in other words when the forces are in equilibrium, the object will be moving at a constant velocity. We see this in Newton's first law of motion.